Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time. My name is Steve Herrick. I'm the Senior Director of Business Development for the domestic piece of Oshkosh Defense. And our presence here at this show is to showcase our fleet of defense ready now, production ready now, autonomous vehicles that we've coined as the family of multi-mission autonomous vehicles in the light, medium, and heavy categories. Right behind me is the medium family of multi-mission autonomous vehicle, the F-MAV. It's built off of the production now FMTV A2 vehicle chassis. We are in a partnership team with Raytheon as well as Forterra for autonomy. This vehicle was showcased during Project Convergence Capstone 5 as a demonstration of autonomous fires in that aspect. Up in the Raytheon booth, you can see a cabless version of this. This is showcasing the optionally crewed version of that same capability. We have indications from the Army that they are starting a common autonomous multi-domain launcher program in the medium that is under current competition. So right now, FMTV is all US-based production. It is a ready now technology that's being fielded to the US Army. Oshkosh has a history of providing the tactical wheeled vehicle fleet for the Army that is proven to meet the current standards within the mission profiles, as well as the existing log and sustainment tail that the vehicle also provides. The vehicle behind me is our light version of the F-MAV family. It is based on the current fielded Rogue Fires Nemesis chassis from the United States Marine Corps. And as you highlighted behind me, you see a different payload that targets an Army mission for formation-based layer protection. You have a Blue Halo Titan counter UAS system teamed up with a hoverfly tethered UAS, and then mixed in with a AeroVironment SB600 launched effects loitering munitions capability. The goal of ours to demonstrate this type of vehicle is to show the modular open system approach that this vehicle contains and an ability to host multiple platform or multiple mission payloads. It's not just a missile firing capability that the Marine Corps has targeted. We have the ability to host multiple payloads that target really every Army need. And regardless of payload, it could be stripped down as a log carrying capability for sustainment purposes. So the main goal is to show that the design envelope is wide open with our modular open system approach to this vehicle, and it can support multiple payloads. So this is a production vehicle right now. It's being fielded within the Marine Corps. Everything from the flat deck on down is currently in the field. So what you see behind me is our Extreme F-MAV, and this is based on a currently production vehicle for our international partners, the Mobile Artillery Platform. It normally has a 155 millimeter turret system from Elbit. It is a mixture essentially of a PLS and a LVSR from our other brands, but essentially it's a new platform to show the ability to carry heavier payloads within the missile family. So what you see on the back of this vehicle is 4 Tomahawk missiles. This is a prototype project that we've launched to create the ideation of if there is a heavier option or heavier payloads desired from the indications of Camel, that this is something we'd be willing to look at. We're taking all indications from the Army constantly to see where the future leads us. So we akin ourselves to following the Army, but also developing new modernization to create those identified requirements gaps and where our capabilities can best meet the soldiers' needs.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
I'm Jim Simon. I'm the chief engineer of the Tempest and some sister systems, focusing on counter UAS primarily. V2X, broadly speaking, is a defense contractor with 10,000 employees. We manage a lot of scope, but not the least of which is the engineering component in Indianapolis, Indiana. That's the modernization and sustainment group, and we're headquartered out of Reston, Virginia. The Tempest is first and foremost a highly mobile AGM-114 longbow carrier. It met an immediate operational need to carry longbows in a counter Group 2, Group 3 fashion for a rapid acquisition DoD partner. It gets the longbow into the fight and out of the fight as quickly as possible. This vehicle is meant to leave a protected state, enter and sortie out to strike a Group 2 or Group 3, and then using the fire and forget capability of the Longo, quickly evacuate before counterfires can be directed against it. This is a commercial side-by-side, one that you can buy, any of us can buy off the street. From contract to award, it was maybe 4 days before we had the vehicle delivered to our facility, at least the prototype. We chose the Can-Am baseline because of the unique capabilities of their system. From there, we have a RADA, RPS-42 MHR on the roof here. That's our primary sensor. And of course, we host 2 AGM-114 longbows, which is the primary effectory for the system. The longbow Hellfire has an active seeker, which enables fire and forget behavior, lock on before and after launch. The Tempest and its sister, which is a stationary configuration, of which there are over 30, are fielded successfully today. It's a very fast vehicle. It enables a short duration sortie such that the missile can be off the rail and the vehicle can be evacuating out of a hazardous area in a short amount of time. The first slug of systems was for a DoD customer, but of course anyone that hosts longbow Hellfires is a shoe-in for this capability.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'm Dan Ferber. I'm the product director of artillery and combat support here in BAE Systems in the product and services sector. Our whole objective with 10952 is to help the U.S. Army increase its range. And what we have done with the 10952 is we've taken the proven M109A7 and we've integrated it with the Rheinmetall L52. Both products are in service in the world, throughout the world today. 109A7, 100% in use today with the U.S. Army. The L-52 in service with 9 different countries throughout the world. So taking those two highly mature technologies and bringing them together into a very incremental, cost-effective manner is going to provide the U.S. Army double the range on non-precision and more than double the range on precision fires. We started off on this endeavor by ourselves. We've put tens of millions of dollars in internal research and development efforts into developing what we have so far. I think it's really ready to go for the U.S. Army, but there are some tweaks that we got to make sure that it is fully capable of everything we want it to do for the U.S. Army and our soldiers and what the Army would want it to do. What we have done through the course of the last 2 years, we've shot the cannon through various, integrated on the chassis through various tests. Our most recent testing we did last November, where we essentially shot this system utilizing maximum charges, demonstrating what this system would go through from a maximum gun shock recoil system. So we've proven that system out, and we've proven out by nature of doing that test that this system's ready to go for the next step. The cannon is fully compatible with U.S. Army munitions, and being how it has essentially a JBMOU compliant cannon tube, it's also compatible with all the European ammunitions in the 155 millimeter family. For the future, further development for the next year or so, really what we're hoping to do with the U.S. Army is work into an agreement to develop it with the U.S. Army so that they have input into how we're going to further adjust the design. And with everything as we have it laid out, there's no reason why we couldn't have this in the hands of soldiers in 2030, 2031.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. My name is Jason Yoakum. I am the program manager for the Aero Logistics Connector what we call the MQ72C Lakota Connector, and we are in a competition right now for a Marine Corps contract that is to provide a autonomous platform to be able to support contested logistics throughout all theaters of combat. Primarily, the focus has been mostly on the Pacific, but really everything that we're doing on this is applicable universally. So the aircraft that we're designing is based on the H-145D3, which in the U.S. Army is the UH-72 Bravo. It's a great baseline for an aircraft. It's already a digital aircraft, and it already has some great systems with the teleonics systems on it that really allows us to be aggressive with how we're pursuing the learning curve that we have on autonomy. The first step that we have is it's always about understanding the mission that the aircraft is supposed to be doing and the operational environment that it's going to be in. You know, this aircraft, really what they were trying to look for is they needed an aircraft that can be risk worthy to go into areas that you may not want to be able to send a manned aircraft. Also an aircraft that it's not bound by some of the fighter management rules that we have, and it can continue to fly as long as it's safe to do so on the aircraft. We opened up the nose of the aircraft, so we were really talking to the customer, talking to the Marine Corps from the start, and understanding what exactly were they looking for. And they wanted something that you can put large volumes of cargo, including long items, that it may be difficult to be able to load them through the nose of the air or from the sides of the aircraft. And so we looked at it and said, well, if we open up the nose of the aircraft, which the design of the H-145 gave us that opportunity, now we can hinge the nose of the aircraft like you're seeing and give us that opportunity to be able to open it up, and we can fit large items and long items through the center of the aircraft that we may not be able to do through the sides of the aircraft. Right now we're in the middle of a test plan that we have that's a total of 8 tests. We're about halfway through. We've done flight tests 1 through 4 internally. And so far we've been able to move with our partners that we have. We have some great partners. Shield AI is providing our autonomy. Perry Labs is providing our ground control stations and our C2. And then L3 Harris is providing our digital backbone that allows us to do spiral upgrades. And what we've done so far in the 4 flight tests is we've brought that team together progressively. And we've gone from, in June, we had never flown an autonomous aircraft on an H-145, and Shield AI had never flown a helicopter. We've done 4 flight tests, and now we have Hive Mind from Shield AI, who's flying the helicopter from everything from takeoff from the ground through transition to cruise flights to landing to the ground, including being able to hover taxi around an airfield, all being controlled by an autonomous pilot. Ultimately, we'll be able to have a ground control station that will have more control capability, really to control the aircraft as if it was a UAS, a normal UAS, but then we'll also have out where the Marines are on the ground, a tablet with an app on a tablet that allows them to command the helicopter and be able to give instructions on where to land and things like that, but with a lower level of control. A lot of the in-between is going to be being done by an autonomous pilot. What we're done right now so far in our testing, we're using a ground control station to instruct the aircraft and the AI pilot on the aircraft what to do.
Gotcha. So our company is called MARS Incorporated. We're in Montana, north central U.S., right next to Canada. About a year ago, my partner and myself, we had a concept. There was a contest with the Army called X-Tech, which means experimental technology, for a precision grenade rifle. Something beyond what a launcher would be. That's kind of an area effect weapon. This is designed to be a direct fire weapon that delivers a grenade that carries a payload. It differs from the 40 millimeter in that it's a 30 mil, smaller, lighter projectile, travels about twice the velocity of the typical 40 millimeter. Doesn't carry quite as much payload, doesn't have the same explosive capacity, but because of the increased accuracy, that comes with a lot of increased lethality. This particular gun weighs 13 pounds, so a little heavier than an assault rifle, but it's lighter than the multi-fire 40 millimeter grenade launchers like the MGL revolving guns. It has less recoil than the Mark 19s that aren't safe for somebody to shoot when you're talking about the high pressure 40 millimeters. To handle the recoil that it does have, which is still substantial, we're shooting a 86 grain projectile at nearly 700 feet per second, so the recoil's stiff. It has a 5-round box magazine. The mag is very large. There's a really unique buffer system in this. It's not just a simple spring. It's designed to kind of slow the mechanism down to spread that recoil impulse out over a time rather than all in one instant. The gun's operation is actually long recoil, like the old Browning Auto 5 shotgun. Carry and barrel travel rearward together for 8 inches while the bolt is still locked. So all the fire and smoke and all the energy is expended before it opens, so the gun stays very clean. The accuracy is very excellent. We can hit human-sized silhouette targets at 500 yards with consistency. This weapon allows you to hit something the size of a human being at 600 yards. I don't have to hit close and hope it does damage. I can put a grenade through a window or through a door or directly into a small target. Small vehicles, we've got counter drone capability where we can track airborne objects. We are in development right now of a special counter drone round. Our ammo partner, they're called Amtech. They've done terrific development on the ammunition technology as far as lethality and range and accuracy and capability. We've got an airburst smart round in development. We've got high explosive dual purpose rounds. We've got general high explosive rounds. And again, those are all coming from our ammo partner, Amtech. We have tested this gun extensively. This is serial number 1. This is our first prototype. It's been fired upwards of 2,000 times. In the next few months, we're moving into a second leg of the grenade competition. There's a prototype project opportunity notice that's open to various other companies with the intention to hand over a manufacturing contract if and when the Army decides to adopt the Precision Grenadier rifle.
Thank you so much.